Elite Facts presents
Top 10 Most Evil Businessmen in the World.
10.
Walton Family. Sam Walton and his brother founded Walmart in 1962, and today that company is the largest private employer in the world, as well as the largest retailer in the world. For all its wealth, an estimated $421 billion, it has an equal number of evil practices attributable to it. Walmart is most often accused of treating employees like a commodity, and no act better proves that than the case of 52-year-old Deborah Shank. After becoming paralyzed in a collision with a semi, Shank's family was awarded $700,000 in damages. The resulting $417,000 that the family received after legal expenses was taken away by Walmart. The company sued Shank for $470,000 because her employment contract stipulated any damages won by an employee were property of the company. This left her family to care for her with only the assistance of Medicaid and Social Security payments.
9.
Sanjay Kumar. Kumar was the former CEO of Computer Associates who began defrauding the company before 2000. His relatively simple practices included backdating contracts and even adding a week for accounting periods, known as the 35-day month. Kumar's crimes might not seem evil, but the extent of his fraud is staggering. Kumar and his accomplices defrauded Computer Associates of $2.2 billion over a period of several years. Kumar was sentenced to 12 years in prison while the company was renamed.
8.
Herman Von Siemens. Herman Von Siemens was the CEO of Siemens during World War II. The atrocities of the business begin before the war, however. Siemens was a major player in helping the Nazi Party rebuild the German army, improve infrastructure, and eventually help them put in place the mechanisms that drove the Holocaust. During World War II, with von Siemens in charge, the company's worst acts included operating factories at the infamous concentration camps of Auschwitz and Buchenwald. Jewish slave labor was used in both factories to create electrical switches for military use. Those same slave laborers would later meet a grisly end inside of Siemens-built gas chambers operated at both camps.
7.
Richard Skrushy. Richard Skrushy's evil practices while in charge of Health South are almost too numerous to list. He was twice charged with 30 counts each of illegal practices while acting as CEO for Health South. His crimes included authorizing the termination of whistleblowers, bribery, fraudulent accounting practices, extortion, money laundering, and mail fraud, among others. Although he managed to avoid jail in 2003 on the first 30 counts, he was later convicted on 30 different charges in 2007 and sentenced to 6 years and 10 months in prison. Health South survived Skrushy's abuses.
6.
Robert Rubin. Robert Rubin might be one of the few men who can be directly linked to the 2008 financial collapse that struck the economies of the world. Rubin wriggled his way into the Treasury Secretary position under President Bill Clinton and helped usher in one of the greatest deregulatory eras in U.S. history. Rubin's works, including the end of the Glass-Steagall War, made it possible for economically essential banks to gamble taxpayer dollars on volatile stock markets. Those actions allowed the formation of Citigroup and other too-big-to-fail banks and financial institutions. Rubin earned $120 million working for Citi, while the bank piled up bad investment after bad investment, eventually requiring a $45 billion government bailout.
5.
Leopold II, King of the Belgians. Leopold II used the Conference of Berlin in 1884 to acquire the Congo region of Africa. He established a private company under the guise of a nation called the Congo Free State. Leopold exercised full control of the country as head of the private organization and used a private force of soldiers, tax collectors, and gangs to gather up the ivory and rubber resources of the region for the sake of profit. The atrocities of Leopold's forces are too numerous to list, but in short, his troops forced locals into slave labor collecting ivory and later rubber for the company to sell. Laborers who didn't meet quotas were killed, families of laborers were held as collateral to ensure workers performed up to expectations, and hands were chopped off as proof that underperformers were executed.
4.
Kenneth Lay. Lay was Skilling's partner in crime. There's more on him on the way, but as the two cooked the books at Enron, grossly overvaluing the holdings of the company over the course of a number of years. Lay's actions, like those of Skilling, led to the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history when Enron Corporation failed in 2001. Lay's underhanded moves cost 20,000 Enron employees their jobs and numerous life savings accounts that were tied to company stocks.
3,
Jeffrey Skilling. As a big power player at Enron, Skilling encouraged the questionable accounting tactic known as mark-to-market. It allowed Enron to make overly optimistic values for energy prices by appraising company holdings based upon expected values. Skilling also signed off on the creation of an Enron subsidiary called Chuco, which was little more than a dumping ground for Enron's debt. Skilling was sentenced to 24 years and 4 months in prison. Enron eventually collapsed, taking with it the jobs and life savings of thousands of employees.
2,
Joe Nachio. While serving as the CEO of Quest, Joe Nachio exhibited a penchant for fabricating the truth to his benefit and his alone. Nachio's lies included inflated revenue claims and false reports of non-existent upcoming government contracts. He also profited illegally from a run-up in Quest stock prices. Nachio was slapped with a $19 million fine, ordered to forfeit $52 million made from illegal trading, and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Nachio began serving his term in 2009, and Quest was eventually acquired by CenturyLink Communications.
1,
Dennis Kozlowski. Kozlowski's business career appeared to be a brilliant one, complete with a rags to riches storyline. After growing up on the wrong side of the tracks, Kozlowski eventually rose to the position of CEO with Tyco. Greed and a lack of moral direction led Kozlowski to siphon off $600 million in company funds for his own use. His excesses included $6,000 shower curtains, lavish parties on the company dime, and false bonuses he claimed were given at the direction of the board of directors. Kozlowski is serving a prison term of no less than 8 years, with a maximum of 25 years.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.